The Monaco Grand Prix is this weekend, along with the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600, all generally held on the same day, right at the end of May. A Grand Prix which doesn't really move on the calendar due to obviously having to close down the whole of Monaco, but first held in 1929 when Grover Williams, was it Grover Williams? Yes, William Grover Williams won the first Grand Prix in 1929, and then the first World Championship race was won by Juan Manuel Fangio for Alfa Romeo in 1950. The Grand Prix has missed out on a couple of races due to regulations, deaths of the Prince Louis in 1949, and obviously the COVID pandemic in 2020. But it's an ever stay on the calendar. Does bring up a different couple of views between people whether it should be there or not. So we'll start off with Wajid on that point. Should the Monaco Grand Prix be on the F1 calendar?
For complete history and nostalgia, it's one of the Triple Crowns. Absolutely. I absolutely 100% it should be. I think the problem is for most fans, even the purists, well, not the purists or the elites, or the top F1 fans like Dave, where there should be no changes to the circuit and it's the most amazing thing in the world. They need to do something to the track to improve, just have one area of overtaking. Like I've been very fortunate. I've been to Monaco. The only place they could realistically make an overtake is sort of the tunneled into the chicane section, where they could reclaim back some of the harbour to sort of extend the road out a bit. Monaco is literally as tight as twisty as it is. Well, it's even worse on the TV. That's the only place they can sort of extend, make an overtaking spot. That's the one thing Monaco needs.
Just to throw out there, just very quickly on that very point before we continue on, is it the circuit or is it the cars? Because obviously the cars are so much longer and wider now.
But we weren't getting. But we've not had the last sort of overtake I can like opportunistic overtake I can remember, before Max was like tearing through the field in the Red Bull because he was so qualified out of place. But one for a genuine position was the Schumacher one under the safety car, and he got penalised for that.
I would throw in Perez for McLaren in that season. He kept diving up the inside of people.
Okay, but look how far we're talking back.
But then if we're saying that, let's go back to 2006 and the historic Imola Grand Prix that everybody raves about. There's 8 overtakes in that race, but everybody raves about that race.
Yeah, but I understand your point, but like we're talking consistently where the only thing that matters in Monaco is qualifying, and with F1 now trying to do the forced glitz and glamour of the United States with Miami. Obviously, Las Vegas is going to Las Vegas. You've got all the fireworks for the season ender in Abu Dhabi. You have, for me, Singapore sort of the jewel of the Asian crown. It's the first night race that has a lot of glitz and glamour as well. Obviously, for those who've been fortunate enough to go to that sort of region of the world, is quite wealthy. It's very glitz and glamour there. What aside from history and being one of the Triple Crowns, which obviously is a very big thing, what's the unique thing about Monaco now, if everything about Formula One is glitz, glamour, and show business?
Yeah, I can get that. I suppose it's the original. I suppose that it's the OG of the glitz and glamour, and you can throw glitz and glamour anywhere, but I don't. I think the point is everywhere else you have to kind of make it up, whereas Monaco you don't. Everybody knows the class of Monaco. You got to think it's kind of like if you wanted to go live in Monaco, you have to have certain like relations or a certain amount of money even to live in Monaco. So it's still very, very exclusive in terms of an area. We're going back to the track you said about doing something. They did investigate the area just outside Portier for where they extended the land out, but that wasn't possible. It was too tight and twisty. The race came out with a detailed view of them turning left at Portier last year and having a really long straight into the tunnel, but there's too many little sorts of chicanes. You'd have to stick into that. And also, I believe, and don't quote me on this, that would start heading the track towards where the drivers live in Monaco. And for me, you kind of don't want to do that, because then you've got more fans heading to where the drivers need to go, relax, forget about the Grand Prix, etc. And I'm not saying that there's not drivers who live along the Grand Prix course, but I just think, we know a mass amount of them live up that side of Monaco. Do you really want to start taking the Grand Prix track past, Lewis steps out straight into a guardrail, hops onto a track and walks around to get to the paddock in the morning, or something like that? I just think maybe it's good. I don't have a lot wrong with the track personally. I think it's more the cars. And we think back to 98 with Alex Wurz and Schumacher. They were even making contact then, but that is just Monaco. You've got to take the risk to pass somebody. And it didn't work for Wurz and Monaco and Schumacher that year. Schumacher retired straight away. Wurz ended up in the Portier seafront chicane barrier when his suspension failed.
No, the thing is, like, I totally appreciate what you're saying. I totally appreciate what you're saying, but it's especially this season of all seasons where cars have struggled to overtake. Everything like that. This is going to be, in my opinion, more processional than normal. Even the sort of, even with it being it's generally sort of a one-stop race anyway.
Yeah.
So even if you have the sort of build up and the excitement up until the first pit stops, which is around lap 16 to 20 on the soft tire, bit further out. Once that's done, unless there's a massive engine blow up or one of the leaders makes a mistake, it never changes. And even with the smaller cars, like we were talking, I've always been saying, like, there needs to be an overtaking spot. Everyone wants to talk about, oh, the barriers are so close, this and that. For me, it's like Singapore and Baku are now like the new quote unquote best versions for a street track. Because I don't know why F1's got this weird fantasy of now wanting to do street tracks everywhere when there's perfectly, because I don't know, maybe they've followed Formula E and gone, that's a really good idea, because obviously Formula E viewing figures are through the roof quite clearly. So if we're gonna go down this street track route, then for me Singapore and Baku are sort of the new standard for street tracks with these modern F1 cars. Which then begs the question, okay, yeah, the cars are a problem, but we only changed the regulation. We only changed the regulation last year. We could have made the car smaller. We could have gone back to that V8 size car. They didn't. So quite clearly, the cars probably aren't going to get smaller because they've still not found a way to package the turbo hybrid system enough to make it smaller. So therefore, the only other conceivable thing is the Monaco track needs to find a way to modernize with F1, and along with that, there's I think now more than ever, there's definitely growing tensions between the commercial rights owners and Monaco, because for the longest time Monaco have had, and because of Bert, I think a lot of it has to do with Bernie. Um, they've had favorable treatment in terms of how much they've got to pay. They can constantly say no to everything, and things like that. So there's definitely tension growing, and I really do think Monaco's got to modernize. Otherwise, there could be a chance we don't see it anymore. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because it's not like they can just move a building and anything like that. Reclaiming land from the sea seems to be the best way they can adapt things, but it's not down to, oh, we're going to adapt it for Monaco Grand Prix. We're adapting it for Monaco itself. And while the Monaco Grand Prix brings a lot of things in for Monaco, it does more for F1 than F1 does for Monaco.
Absolutely.
So I suppose it's, for me, it's down for the FIA to do the changes and adapt it that way. But going off the wider cars, we look back, when were mistakes made by sort of legends of the sport? Look how wide the cars were in 1988 when Ayrton Senna popped it in the wall and disappeared off to his house for 2 days before Ron Dennis finally found out he was still there, or however long it was. We've seen mistakes from drivers around here who are the best in the world. Lewis got away with one in 2008 when it was really lucky that the rain stopped when he wanted to pit.
Yeah.
We've seen Kimi Räikkönen, Jacques Villeneuve struggled like hell around Monaco, just couldn't hook the place up. We even had a victory for Jarno Trulli when he was on top form. We've had Coulthard show everybody the way round, considering he lives in Monaco, then you'd expect him to do so. You look at the win sheet, while Red Bull have dominated recently and should have had more wins than they've got, they've only got 3 since 2013 in the hybrid era, which is it is just nuts, because this is a place where they could have took advantage. Should have won 2016, I want to say, or was it 15 when Daniel Ricciardo should have won it?
It's 2016. Yes, because it's the year Lewis won it, because Nico let Lewis go because he'd caused his own Truly train.
Was that the Lauda? No, 2019 was the Lauda year. So 2016. Oh, was it? Was it Lauda year? I want to say it was, but I don't think it was. No, it wasn't.
I think it's 29. I think it's 2019.
I just remember the year everybody had the caps on them.
I think that's 2019, because I think he wore the special of one of red.
And Vettel did.
Yeah, it's 2019.
But yeah, so obviously we had the triple win for Rosberg. We had Lewis only got 3 victories around this principality. Fernando Alonso has 2 victories around the principality. Nobody else on the grid has more than 1, because obviously Rosberg's gone. Webber won twice. Vettel won twice. Then we go back to the year where early 2000s we had Michael, Coulthard, Montoya, Trulli, Raikkonen, Alonso for the first 6 years since the millennium. Different people win this race, even though it can run slightly differently. We have the Panis victory. I know cars don't retire as much now, granted, but could we see one of these little surprise winners? This is where Fernando Alonso is saying, this is the track where we could win.
He can start rave all he wants about how, this is our race, etc. But all season, the Aston has not been quicker than the Red Bull in the very slow, heavy downforce corners. Surprisingly, in Baku, unless it was until Red Bull had their triple DRS system, which still has not been investigated, or no one has mentioned anything about it. What's going on? But anyway, the Aston was actually quicker in the straights. The Aston has generally been quicker in the straights. It's not been quicker in the tight and twisty sections.
It's kind of been based on the Alpine from last year.
Yeah, it has, which is it's very very slippery in a straight line, but it just doesn't generate the downforce in the slower tighter sections, which is required at Monaco. And look, man, you're still talking even before the change in the turbo, to this sort of new ground effect cars. The Red Bulls were still very very good at Monaco. 2016, like I said, like we talked about, you know, Danny Rick should have won. Obviously, Max binned in the wall, but that was all but Danny Rick's up until the botch pit stop. You know, Danny won again. Danny won in 2018. He could have beaten Seb in 2017 from what I remember.
Yeah.
Max was challenging Lewis in the 2019 Grand Prix.
Well, 2017 was the one where I think Kimi was leading at the start and should have been, and Vettel got through in the pit stops.
Yeah, sorry, but I mean, my point being, like, even before we moved to this new era, the Red Bulls have always looked at Monaco and gone, Monaco is our race. You know, like, I mean, like, from 2010 to 2012, it was a triple Red Bull. It was Webber, Seb, Webber again. So I don't know why Aston circled Monaco and went, we're going to do well here. It's like the A1 ring. It's just the Red Bull goes really really well.
Yeah, very very true. And taking two wins since we got back from the COVID break and everything. So it's a moment where I don't really see anything else happening. Last year, they were battling with Ferrari for the win. Ferrari were quick in... Sorry, I'm trying to think. Miami. Was it Miami?
What, this year, yeah.
Quick after Australia, yeah. Mercedes were quick in Australia. So maybe Mercedes might have something with their new package. We will wait and see. I'm still hanging my hat on the yes, it will go somewhere. Interesting thing about the package, we have got a video coming out about our talk from just before the the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix was called off, and our thoughts obviously
just call it San Marino.
Okay, the Imola Grand Prix.
Yeah.
That was called off, obviously, and our thoughts go to everybody out there in the region. But before that, we did a preview.
Especially to the people that obviously lost their lives out there, you know.
Yeah.
Tragic ways, and you know, our hearts do go out to the people that, you know, lost their lives and their families and things, and, you know, thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. It's one of them where if, you know, Monaco may not have even been happening due to trying to get the stuff back out of Imola to get to Monaco. Luckily, it's not Canada or something like some of the calendar is. But in that preview, we did a piece on the Mercedes update, which I will be sending out onto YouTube very, very shortly. So keep your eyes out for that. That should be out already if you're watching this, because this will come out afterwards. But there's a lot of hopes pinned on it. Out of all the teams who have brought updates to Imola, Mercedes is probably the one team who will run their parts in Monaco, whatever happens, because it's going to take so much more effort to change it back to what it originally was.
Absolutely. And there was that much hype. Brought about the new car as well. They didn't get to run it in Imola. Like you said, the sort of turnaround time from Monaco from Imola to Monaco, given the situation and how they struggled to get the cars out and stuff, I would be very, very surprised if we don't see the new car. And to be honest, it's a very, very good test to see how good that car actually is, to see if it runs in Monaco, because the W14 Part 1 wasn't going to do anything. So let's see what the W14 Part 2.5972 in non
We'll call it B.
elimination.
We'll call
Yeah,
it B.
we'll call,
B
let-
spec.
yeah, I'm very interested to see what this B spec car does. You obviously, like we've talked about, have incredibly high hopes for, not obviously title winning, but you have high hopes that this
Yeah.
chassis is going to make them
At least
clear,
competitive.
yeah, at least competitive or a clear number two.
Yeah.
And you know, if we really want to sort of get rumor milly about it and sensationalist, maybe this chassis depends where if Lewis Hamilton is driving for the team next season.
It could very well do, but one thing we've really got to have a general think about is if, you know, Monaco's not going to be one that's really going to tell us what this car can do. As I said before in previous shows, Spain will be a big marker point because of it being so test worthy as a circuit anyway. They used to always put all the pre-season tests there. Monaco, if you will probably see those Mercedes, if the update is on the car at the end of pit lane for free practice one, first there, first out, hammering the laps, but I don't expect them to be quick. And the reason being with Mercedes is with Monaco in general, you build up the weekend, so you don't want to be throwing it in the wall on FP1, whatever, so it'll dent your confidence for the rest of the weekend. But Mercedes may not have extra parts with this. So there's going to be a chance that Mercedes will just be like, go out there, evaluate it best you can, tell us what we can. But Monaco grips up. You're always going to run the soft tyres. You only really run hot laps in practice as well. It's not like you do race runs in Monaco because you're not expecting anybody to be able to overtake you if you put your car in the right position. So it's a hot lap speed test on a high downforce circuit, which is rear downforce limited on that Mercedes. So it's going to be interesting to see whether the changes do help with the rear downforce. But it's certainly an interesting one. We've touched on Aston Martin. We've touched on Red Bull. I suppose we've got to touch on Ferrari. Are we going to see them in the competitive environment we maybe saw them in Miami?
No.
Or are we just going to, Charles grew up on the streets. He knows this place like the back of his hand, and we've seen him on pole position. Yes, he stuck it in the wall. And I am very tempted to say when we get to our predictions, you're not allowed to pick somebody brings out a red flag on the last lap of qualifying because he's on pole position. Because that will start rumour mill going even more. But yeah, could you see Ferrari being competitive, or are we looking at the fourth fastest team maximum this weekend?
But look at the four fastest team maximum. They've not been. Miami is a very, very unique track given the humidity, the track layout, things like that. Actually, no, because they were really good in Baku as well.
True.
Let me take that back. No, they'll be there.
Okay.
I totally forgot about Baku.
Yeah.
Forget what I was about to
I was
talk
going to
about.
say, personally, I still see Charles Leclerc as threatening pole position this weekend.
No, yeah, absolutely. But the difference is, well, one, hopefully he doesn't bin it in the wall this time. That's number one. Number two, I think he's the only person that you can rely on that Ferrari to even challenge the Red Bulls. And yeah, like to completely forget what random crap I was about to spew about them not being good at street circuits when they've literally been the best at street circuits all year. No, I think it'll be there. I think it will be Charles who will be there. It won't be Carlos. And let's see if Charles can break his Monaco curse, because it's a thing.